Welcome, everyone, to IVRPA's last webinar of 2025. We're deciding to take December off. It's a little bit busy. I am Scott Whitty, and I have the honor of serving as IVRPA's president, along with an exceptional dedicated board of directors. IVRPA, the International VR Professionals Association, is the only international organization dedicated to helping our members and the wider VR or XR community of creators be more successful. These webinars present content that can be difficult to find elsewhere. Today's webinar is an example. I expect that all of us are familiar with some variation of VR domes, but what is the full scope of this immersive platform, and how can we as VR content creators get involved? Today's presenters will answer all that and more. I would like our presenters to unhide their video and just do a real quick introduction of who you are, and then we'll get into the formal presentation.
All right, I'll start. My name is Donato Colucci. I'm the CEO of the Illuminati. We've been around since 2003 doing domed immersive environments. Typically what we call what we do group VR. And I'm pretty honored to be here. It's an exciting time in the last 5 years or so with the explosion of VR. So life's been good. Nice to meet everyone.
Eric?
All right. Hi, my name is Eric Hansen. I'm a visual effects artist, a filmmaker, a full dome filmmaker, and a VR developer. So I like to take my skills and kind of distribute it among those domains. So I'll talk all about that in my talk, but good to be here.
And Roger, quick introduction.
Hi everyone, my name is Roger Giraldo. I'm from Colombia, filmmaker also. Well, I have been working in this industry for quite long and understand that the VR technologies, the immersive technologies are an impressive way to tell stories. So thank you so much for having me here.
Okay then. Bernardo, would you please start?
Sure. Let's see. Share entire screen. That's that, right? Share. Are we good? It looks like everybody can see me. Hi. Yeah. So, well, thank you for inviting me here. And today, what I hope to do is talk through immersive environments. Talk about dome screens and how they affect your storytelling. Because the shape of the screen and the size of the screen and the way it's used is all part of the storytelling process. So it's kind of two halves. That's the first half of it. And the second half, Illuminati really focuses on interactivity. How do you interact with the immersive environment? And the challenges in what we call linear content, movie capture, linear playback, challenges in interactivity are much higher than they are in sort of the 3D video game world, right? Computer generated worlds. So I'm going to talk about both of those. Quick introduction. I'm an optical engineer. I'm the lens designer for the Illuminati. All the fisheye lenses that we produce, I've designed. Some were better than others. This is my grad school world where I worked on the MMT, a 6-mirror telescope up on out of the mountains of Arizona. I went on to virtual reality in the late 90s at Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We made a little X-ray specs that allowed you to see inside the patient using ultrasound data. It was really fun. We also did one of the first dome exhibits was at the VR Pavilion in Expo 98. I don't know if you can see on the lower, well, the building with the gold balls is now torn down on the lower right. It's kind of hard to see some of your hard, where I almost gave my life building this dome. And now it's just being torn down. I guess that just means I'm old. Since then, I've been staff scientist at various places, keeping one foot in the university, one foot in commercial world. I was at the University of Minnesota at the Digital Design Consortium, doing what I do now. And somewhere along the line, about 2003, we formed the Illuminati, and I've been doing that full time. It's been really fun. We've been to the White House. We set up at midnight at a parking lot on the Dead Sea across from the resorts in a sandstorm. It's been a trip. But on to the talk, virtual environments. I wanted to start with this book, Shivers Down Your Spine. It is a really excellent historical view of why we do these immersive environments. And they go from cave art to cathedrals to painted cycloramas to what we do now, right? And tie it all together. The tie-in is that it gives you shivers down your spine, that you feel something emotional and deep inside of you when you are in these environments. I really like this book. I recommend it to anyone. So, like I said, I wanted to talk about how screen and story and immersion all kind of work together. One of the main concepts is if you think about a dome screen, it's your window to the VR world. It's kind of like the deck of the Enterprise. Not everybody remembers Star Trek, but I do. But it's this window, and it really affects how you view that world, right? I like to tell our clients that you're in a spaceship, and how big is your window? And if your window is above you, well, you can't see in front of you. And if it's only in front of you, you can't see above you. And you think about that in your storytelling. I think it's an important concept, and it seems really simple, but if you start there, it really helps guide the environment that you're going to design. A second really critical point is if the ground is important in your story, you need screen below the user's eye, right? The user has to look down to see ground. If you look up to see ground, it breaks the illusion. And Illuminati, we call our products the Geodome because all of our screens give you ground. And we just sort of hung our hats on that as being very important. So that's a key point. Another point I kind of wanted to make is the difference between engagement and immersion. So engagement, anything can be engaging. A flat screen, if it's interesting enough and it's just a TV monitor, it can be very engaging, right? Especially if the audio is good. Immersion's a little different. Immersion is, maybe this is my definition, but it's when you have the periphery, when it's seen and remembered. So even in VR goggles, when you look and look away, you remember that object being over there. That's immersion, right? So our dome screens provide image over here, even if the story is front and center. This is your sense of immersion. It doesn't mean it's always engaging. Sometimes it's boring, right? So those are two different concepts that are very closely related. And I actually just touched on this, that if you have a single storyline, then the area of focus, you kind of want all the guests to be looking in that main area of focus to tell the story. It's much more difficult and people have learned this. If you do 360 cycloramas, panorama all around you, it's hard to have one story if people are looking the wrong way. Right. And so you end up telling the story and everybody has to turn and look one way. And then you ask yourself, well, why am I showing image behind here? But on the other hand, if you have more of the environmental story where there are multiple stories going on at the same time, then it's perfectly is well suited to a full 360 environment. Right. So that it relates again, the screen relates to the story that's being told, and you kind of have to put all these pieces together. Second last point is scale is very important. I have a slide that sort of talks about scale. In terms of immersion, there's a certain point of believability, and if the screen is too small, you don't believe it, and if the screen is too large, you don't believe it. There's kind of this sweet zone where you believe you're in that immersive world. The last point is Illuminati loves spheres, and I call it keepers of continuity. It's you'll see that point in a second. So let's talk about virtual environments and what they mean by what levels of immersion there can be. On the left hand of the slide, we have something we call casual immersion. It's something you can just walk up to and experience and walk away. There's not a lot of commitment, right? You can get more and more immersed in the environment. So you look at the middle column, we've got panoramas that wrap all around you, which is actually what I'm in here. So now you really are committed to that environment. And of course, VR goggles are the same way. You literally blocked out the rest of the world except for your immersive environment. And off to the right, I have your classic 6 to 8 sided cave, 6-sided cave. I guess you can't have 8. And that's intended to be complete immersion. And we can talk about that. Illuminati tends to live in the casual and the left 2 columns. So let's talk about the dome shape and what kind of stories you can tell. And this is just a high-level overview, right? But if you think about your classic planetarium dome, the image is above you. It is designed to show the night sky. It's much more difficult to show somebody walking through a building because the floor is 8 feet in the air. Illuminati tried to mimic the planetarium with what we call a theater. And it's basically a bouncy toy, a blow-up theater, but it has mostly overhead view with some ground, something to keep you grounded to allow people to show the land below the guest. So, but both of those are really designed for night sky. You look in the middle columns with these panorama shapes. Panoramas are really excellent for flyovers, whether that's flying over the Earth, flying over a planet, flying underwater. They're really excellent for that. It is a window to a spaceship, and it's a very natural feel. But what the what the panorama lacks is image overhead. And so then we'll go to the right-hand column, and you see the portal. The portal is 180 degrees left to right and 90 degrees up. And then we end up with about 30 degrees downward field of view. This is a very natural view. This is kind of like what people's real field of view is. This excels in doing interior spaces. When you're walking through a building, the ceiling is still above you where it should be. Whereas in a panorama, it's chopped off. So this is a broad overview of these shapes, but they're pretty important. Then I want to talk about scale. This is kind of a crowded image, but the left-hand column is large-scale domes. Illuminati has never built anything, ourselves. We haven't built any portable device greater than 13 meters in diameter. That top one is a 13-meter cyclorama. That's the one that was installed at the Dead Sea in Jordan. Then there's another cyclorama that was only 10 meters in diameter. But you get to that scale, you can fit 50, 60 people, but the believability of the immersion starts to fall. And when you get larger than that, and we've all been in these big 20-meter domes, you kind of achieve spectacle as opposed to immersion. You don't really feel like you're there because everything's too big. So now we take the scale down a little bit, and you go into the 10-meter to 4-meter diameter screens, and you can fit 20 people to, 5 to 20, 25 people inside these screens, things become more believable. The screen is far enough away that you're looking in the distance, but it's not so massive that you don't believe it. And this scale has been really, really good for giving that sense of immersion and what we call group VR, where multiple people share the same experience. Then we get to the right-hand column on the smaller screens. When you're like 2 to 4 meters in diameter, anything smaller than that, it's a 1 to 2 person experience. And if you do a 1 meter dome, it's not even worth it. There's no sense of immersion because it feels like a toy. Okay, so spheres. Why does Illuminati love spheres? Well, we like group VR. We want multiple people to be in the dome at the same time. So if you look on the left, well, start at the top. I modeled a portal, and then I modeled a four-sided cave. And when the user is in the exact right sweet spot for both, you get the top 2 images. Everything's perfect, right? But if there's a guest standing next to that user, they have a warped image. There's only one perfect spot in all of these projections. So the warp for a curved, for a spherical surface has sort of easy to see distorted curves, but everything's continuous. So you think of that, a building, a cityscape, the buildings will curve on you. It's like you're wearing Coke bottle glasses. On the other hand, in a cave environment where you have hard corners, that person who's shifted, their buildings, they don't curve, they kink. And they kink at all the corners of the cave. And that's something Illuminati decided we're just not going to go that route because we like group VR. We want a lot of people in the same space. They call that non-differentiable, which I think is pretty fun. But anyway, that's why Illuminati likes to do the spheres. So I was going to show this around. Let me see if I can do this right. Give me a second. 2, 3. Okay, there we are. All right, so I just want a quick tour of these domes. Hopefully you guys can see this, but this is a 4 meter panorama. And I was sitting in there, right? Sitting in the panorama. This sweeps 200 degrees, right? So that's a pretty large sweep. That guy's waving at us, hi. It's a really good simulator dome for maybe 2 to 3 people inside. But because it closes in at 200 degrees, it's kind of limited. This is a small 2 meter dome, and it's also panorama. This is really actually been very good in museums because it's easy to and has a small footprint. Here we are in the dome land. And then this final one I wanted to show is a 3 meter, should I hit play here? Play a different movie. Is a 3.7 meter dome. The reason we did it is it fits in a 3 meter ceiling. So it's kind of like the biggest portal that you can fit in a 3 meter ceiling. But this is a very simple and elegant way to bring people in. It's casual immersion. Walk up and be amazed and then walk away. So yeah, and then over here is another dome, but we have a lot of domes at Illuminati. All right, let's see if I can come back. Be this way again. This. There we go. All right, and I wanted to start talking about interactivity here. Got a few minutes, good. So interactivity, simple look around, which is sort of what I just showed you there on the on that portal. You can launch different videos and let people look around the 360 video. Even though that seems simple, it works really, really well. I wanted to show this. This is sort of one of our ways of doing it. We put geolocated, we call them pano bubbles. You can click on it, and then it'll launch this, and you dive into it, and here you are in the movie, right? And then you can come back out of that and launch a different one, and you can go back and forth that way. It's a World Viewer is really powerful for sort of, we call it a video mashup tool. It is not, oops, No audio. Sorry. Let me get out of there. It's a good video mashup tool. And this is a very effective way for navigating different stories. And you can tell stories, they don't have to be on the earth. There's a lot of different ways you can format that idea. But the second subject I wanted to talk about is super resolution. People are capturing content at very high resolution. And how do you deal with that when your projectors basically are limited to 4K? You could blend multiple projectors, but it gets harder and harder. And it's certainly not appropriate for a museum environment where the blending has to be, looked at every single day. There's a third concept that is really, for me, very old. It goes back to the 2000, the heady days of 2000, which is multilinear storytelling, where you have multiple stories, linear content, and as you navigate through the environment, you see each story. It's kind of like Matterport does for architectural walkthroughs, but you can do that with movies. And then finally, you can live capture supplemental sensory data. I'll talk about this in a second, but we were capturing 3D motion, 5 degrees of freedom, along with video, and made a simulator out of it. So this is Luc Crochant's The Visitor. This is an example of multilinear content. This is the heady days of 2000. That is a mirrored ball. You walk in there and see a fuzzy autofocus image, but it was really effective. It's an art exhibit, but that's what you do. You say the hours of the clock, and you can navigate through the different video scripts that he's got. I thought that was a really interesting concept. He did 3 or 4 exhibits like that. This is the 5 degrees of freedom that I was talking about. I don't actually have a video of this, so I apologize, but this is, they captured the surfboard's motion and, tilt and roll for video that they captured while surfing, and then you relived it on a real surfboard, and you had the motion. It was more exciting than accurate, but it still was a pretty reasonable way to be surfing. It was part of the Richmond Oval's Olympic events. This exhibit we did with a gigapixel star maps, and they wanted to be able to dive into the content. So what we did, oops, I'm out of time. I will hurry up. What we did is we made a leap motion, which you can see on the bottom blue. The leap motion was gesture tracking, and you could point at those various dots and dive into the data and then dive back out again. Because again, there's no way to show 64K images on a 4K projection. This one I did want to cover. This is a globe. It's not a dome, but it is. David Rumsey has digitized all these ancient maps from the 1500s, and they are on 64K by 32K equirectangular maps. Well, even though this is the highest resolution dome we've ever made, it's 16K native, it's still not enough. So what we built was a magnifying glass that is basically an Android phone with a USB presenter, laser presenter, and we have a fisheye detection camera inside the sphere, and you turn this on and you can dive in and out of the dome. I think this video will show here a little bit. There's the camera, and you can see the laser dot hitting the sphere, and then you can zoom in. Now, how do you get the greater resolution? We did WMS tiling the same way Google Earth and others, ArcViz, do their tiling, and that allowed us to make this. I don't know. It's an illusion, but it worked really well in terms of you believe that it's a magnifying glass. So I'll skip this one. This is just another piece of gesture. We're doing camera gesture tracking here, but it's the same thing as we did before. So I think that ends it. I talked a little overboard, but I hope that I was able to cover a bunch of stuff, and I look forward to questions later on.
That was great. Roger, if you want to jump in.
Thank you so much. Well, if I'm thinking that I would like to enter into the matter, showing some examples and talk during I'm showing them. Yeah, well, as I say in the beginning, I have been working like a director for many years, but in some point of my career, some clients start to ask me what we can do, how we can show, how we can make the people feel more interest in some places. Well, I work for a tourist offices, so basically I promote destinations. And in some point, I believe that started with the pandemic. The people start to ask how we can promote, how we can show these destinations in a way that the people understand them. So that comes with the 360 picture in the beginning. But later on, we understand that these 360 pictures, yes, it's a panorama, and that can be transformed into a fully immersive environment. So how to show that if, for example, those offices don't have like 40 VR headsets to each person and so on. So well, let's think into the domes. So I'm gonna share with you guys my screen, and in here we can see a simulation. This software is very special. I hope that everyone is seeing the screen. This software allows to simulate what we was seeing, the dome. So it's very nice because I believe that without that introduction will be very hard to understand what this means. So yeah, well, basically we have in here a dome, the projection of a dome. Probably we can check in here. Let's try this one here already. This is basically dome. It's a sphere, half a sphere, and well, so I'm gonna put play in here. During we are watching this, I'm gonna talk about how this helped to this industry. Let me tell you, this is a national park, Colombian National Park. So the answer of their question was like, okay, let's think into immersive environments that the people can enjoy, can feel like they are in there. So more of these environments, they are hard to access. Some of them are dangerous. Some of them are very fragile, and well, yes, somehow expensive to reach. So for national parks, in this case, was like a good like bet, let's say, for to show their own parks. So this was a challenge because yeah, knowing everywhere you can learn these techniques. So was like quite to understand how you can really transform panorama into a dome projections. So with this thing, we understand several stuff, and was like the people really can feel like, of course, if you in the end put like some sound or backgrounds of more like yes, the sounds of the nature. The people really can understand the environment. The people really can care about it. The people really can feel like they will like to see it, and was a totally success because really the people start to ask, where is it? How can I arrive in there? Really is in danger? How I can protect it? So in the end, these immersive technologies really make a big impact. Is very different if you compare it to see a normal 2D commercial that yes can have a soul and can have a good message, but it's not the same if you put the people in the real place, right? So basically, that is the thing that is being happening here in the national parks recently, and is promoting those environments through these immersive technologies. So something nice is happening also because we understand many things with this job and with these expeditions, and was like, okay, so that means that we can do more research, like scientific research. And something very beautiful appears, and was the exploration of some cave. I want to show you. I want to show this example of how. Yes, well, this is a sector in Colombia that is called Santander, and in here, doing the exploration, doing the searching for resources, searching for pictures and so on, we find out this cave is 200 meters deep, with this art in here. This is here in this area used to live some tribe that was called I forgot in this moment, but all of these pictures were created like thousands of years ago. Of course, there is vandalism in here. Someone entering here and write the day he came. But the thing is that many of the scientists that are seeing these pictures right now, they cannot go to these places because for them it's very hard. It's a long way. You have to go in horse. It's very heavy. So we show these pictures to them in a Cinedobe here in Bogota, by the way. And so for them was like very important to manage to see the cave, like how big is it, and how what these things represent and so on. So I believe that this is also an amazing way to use these immersive technologies. You really can do exploration. You can really do like approachings to how it could be in the past or what. So I wanted to share these examples, guys, because I believe that this helps two different topics: tourism and science. So this is what we are doing this recently times, and I wanted to share with you these experiences. I don't know if you want to, do you have any question or you want to talk about something related with this, but it's what I want to share.
I have something. Daniel asks, are these contents distributed in Colombia?
Well, this is a very important question because right now we have that issue, and is that we don't have like the proper infrastructure to showcase to cast this content. One of those, for example, here in Bogota, there is just two cinedomos. They are private, and it's like big deal to get in there. So, for example, these people from national parks, they are hiring a specific provider that have a system. Basically, it's a dome, yeah, and in the bottom have quite of projector, and this projector have like 8 millimeters lens in there, and works. I'm gonna say no, it works well, but if you compare with a professional cinedomos, is totally different. I mean, you cannot appreciate the detail of the trees or. So yes, it's by the way, it's a good opportunity to develop a good video system in here, because we don't have yet. There is good ones, but well, it's not so easy to access to them if you want to let's say make a festival of domos, or to promote your own films. So yes, they are this. I believe that this is starting. By the way, there is a good story about that. I believe that the first movie in full dome, like, well, yes, in here you can see some how's it called, experiences, but they are all digital. There is not any video. Well, use not how to say that in past. Well, was like, well, let me tell you this story. In 2021, the one of the bureaus in here asked like, well, we need something to show Bogota as a tourist place. So that I believe that this is one. The first movie made in video, in real video in Colombia is this one. It was in 2021. So I can say that it's quite new for Colombia, this market, this kind of technologies, you know. So yeah, it's quite new. It's quite new.
And one more question here from Manuel. He wants to know what the resolution of the videos are as shown.
This particularly one is 5K. That was filmed with a 316 camera. The one that is before the Titan. And yes, it's 8K and works perfectly. By the way, the domes in here are 4K. So, and it's working very well. You manage to see details. You manage to see like a proper like really you are in there. You don't see pixelations. You see very well. But if we go into the recently one, for example, the one that I was showing in the very beginning, that one is 8K. But what we find out is that not the domus doesn't have like in here at least don't have the capacity to cast that 8K footage with 100 megabytes per second. No, actually, they always ask me, Roger, can you put this a little bit less heavy because we are having troubles in casting the material. One example, one of the domes have like 5 projectors, and that I believe that is anyway, I do the films. I don't know much about the technicalities of casting the movies. So they say like, Roger, please put in 4K because it's very heavy for us. It's not working well. It's very. So I believe that more than the how much resolution you can film is a little bit adapted to what you can really cast. So this is what is being my experience. Like really, we are. I don't know if in here the equipments are not so new or I really don't understand that. But they always ask me, no 8K, no 12, just 4, and with very specific bit rate.
Okay, we have two additional questions here, Roger. One from Lauren. What's the love the quality of the drone footage. What are you using to film these? And then the second question is from Daniel. Roger, what is the name of your company?
The first one, the name is Mind Planet. Is Mind Planet is like that. But how I film this, different techniques. Not if it's video, yes, I use. By the way, here you can see a little bit of the wings. 316 cameras. I have been used different. I have tried the Insta2, the last one Insta5. By the way, I'm doing some tests with the new DJI that works very well. And I'm using the regular drone, just hanging down the camera to shoot. So yes, of course, you have to do some post-production, and this is something very important about, in domes. That if you are doing, this is a good example, if you are doing VR, normal VR, like a experience, you can care about the sky, but if you are doing in domes, you have to really care about it, because normally in VR headsets, it's very difficult. The people don't see up normally. So you can do just a layer in there, no need to move it because it's not so necessary. But in VR, in DOM, you have to put a lot of effort in it, because it's a big area. In the DOM, you see a big area, and the big area is the sky. So it's really, you have to try to make the immersive footage very real. So this is what I find out. Yes, I use a normal drone. yes, any brand DJI can be with the camera hanging down, and that's all. But I'm using recently. I'm using pictures. Let's go to cave again. The caves are quite heavy thing to shoot because there is no light, and you have a 316 camera, so you cannot put lights in everywhere because you will see it. So I decide to use pictures. Let's go into a segment with pictures. For example, these ones. Those are pictures, 316 pictures, but think about the 360 pictures that I'm using literally the drone in there. So what I'm doing in here is like start the panorama shooting and start to direct the light where the camera goes. So and in the end, yes, try to give a little bit of light like this shoot, like this one here. Moving the environment like doing a quite dolly in to make a little bit more dynamic the video. In this is a picture also, but have, for example, this waterfall in there that is animation. So yes, different techniques to try to tell the story as have to be. Yeah, I don't know if there is any other question related. Yeah, well, by the way, this one is 2D video with the integration of the whole black background. Guys, you are here.
Oh, we're still here.
Nice.
No, it's very, very nice work. I don't think there's any more questions, but very nice. I guess one quick question. You've got some beautiful graphics that you're doing, the tree trunks and the rest. Just really quickly, because we'll get to Eric, but what are you using to overlay your graphics or to integrate graphics into this?
I'm using After Effects. Yes, After Effects is the software that I'm using. Yes, I mean, what I'm doing is there is a stock of in the waterfall example. There is a stock with green background of different waterfalls and so on. So what I decide to do is integrated with the video. So this is a topic because in the end I believe that this technique is you can use all the techniques that you normally use into the footage, exactly the same techniques you can use of tracking, whatever you want to use. Just that in here you have to take into consideration some other aspects that you are working in a panorama, so you just have to think about that. But basically you can use and you can do whatever you want in 316 environment, in 316 in panoramas, in 316 panoramas. So yes, it's
Thank you. That was very nice. The way you integrated the waterfall animation just kind of sparked that question. It's a nice technique. But thank you, Roger. And I guess we'll go up with Eric next.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, let me get my screen shared here. Everybody see that okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. It's rather early on the west coast of the U.S., but I've gotten through a few cups of coffee, so bear with me. But in any case, so my presentation, I've been involved in, I'll just go to the next slide here. Let's see, one second. There we go. I've been involved with, what I gauged about this this presentation or this event was that it's probably a mix of planetarium, either enthusiasts or people working in that industry, and or the panorama community, of which I've been a partner of for many, many years. But in any case, I guess it's hard to describe what I do. I think in general, I'm a visual effects artist. I spent 20 years in features here in LA, working for some of the studios down below here. I've always been an instructor. I've taught on the side. I started my own studio about 13, 14 years ago with Greg Downing, who I know many of you know. And that was when I began to teach at USC School of Cinematic Arts on a full-time basis also. But in any case, and I'll get through I'll show you more things about that as we go. But nonetheless, this you can see what kind of my areas of expertise are. I'm primarily a 3D artist, but I do an enormous amount of photography and cinematography. But I'm very interested in, excuse me, in trying to innovate how a lot of these different sectors can overlap and be utilized, in a maybe I dare say a clever way, in that there's opportunities within 3D animation and rendering, with 360 imaging, cinematography, and so forth, to all kind of merge together. So that's kind of what I've done. But what guides me is I've been quite a enthusiast about what the real world offers. I worked in features for many years. I did kind of fantasy, conjectured worlds, urban worlds. I have a background in architecture. But I lost interest in that at some point and just became more fascinated with documentary subjects and kind of natural history and cultural heritage. And that's kind of where I've been focused for the last 15 years or so. But we're here to talk about Full Dome. And the thing is, I've been involved in Full Dome for quite some time too, but it's undergoing a really interesting expansion right now. And so, and again, this presentation, by the way, is going to be a lot of slides. I'm not going to show any video, so unlike the other two presenters. So bear with me. Again, being an instructor, students, I need to, as a matter of fact, I have a little secret about my teaching, is I bring in chocolate-covered espresso beans to all my classes, and I pass it around at the beginning of class, and then I get them very attentive, and they can make it through all these PowerPoint slides. But hopefully this helps me kind of go over some of the points. But anyway, so where we are with Full Dome, very interesting time right now, and these are some of the bullet points. I'm not going to elaborate on all these. You can kind of skim over these. But there's a big, public interest in all things immersive experiences, whether it's on your phone and a VR headset, at a venue, etc. LED domes, a huge transformation is just now beginning with the quality and the potential for extraordinary visual quality experiences in a dome. Domes have always been projected. Well, originally they were analog star projectors, of course, but probably about 15, 20 years ago, it became digital projection. And now, of course, we're shifting over to LED. Digital projection had some significant downfalls of kind of cross bounce of the image, degradation of the image, and so forth from projection. And LED is just a stunning, stunning new development. So in any case, that's the quality and the potential of the medium has really upgraded now. Then there's the whole revolution in virtual reality that I've been very involved with. And that, again, kind of overlaps very easily with filmmaking efforts on that side. Kind of the mastering is very similar, whether it's real time or pre-render. And then, and on the VR side, we're undergoing a massive improvement, just like with LED domes, of having VR resolution finally matching human visual acuity. And that's Apple kind of started that. Actually, another company before that, but mainstream Apple brought their headset out last year. Google just a few weeks ago has released their very high resolution headset. So, and that actually, I found it to be really compatible with my filmmaking on the dome side, because I can kind of master my work or guide my work, evaluate the work as I make film for domes in a VR headset. And it's much easier than me traveling to a venue. And for those of you that don't have venues, that's one of the challenges of Full Dome, is the not limited so much, but some geographic areas there are no domes. So this is again something that I've found great use of. There's also GSCA just had their conference in Fort Worth a few weeks ago, I think about a month ago, and which I did not attend, but I've heard reports, and it was held in a dome, and I've heard that it made quite an impression on the GSCA, Giant Screen Association, IMAX filmmakers. And so again, it's now kind of another way to do high resolution filmmaking, immersive filmmaking. And of course, IMAX has kind of led that for many, many years with the general public. And then we have all this new technology arriving for spatial capture, which I'll end on, and that's basically a means of capturing the world three-dimensionally, which I think will change everything. And I think it's going to ultimately kind of change the whole nature of photography. So instead of sharing flat 2D images, we're going to share spatial experiences on your phone at minimum, in a headset or in a full dome venue. And I think it's, a very interesting trajectory that we're all on right now. Being an educator, I'm just going to go through a couple very basic slides. These are slides that I give my students. And where we start is what is immersion? And immersion is nothing new. It's been, storytelling around a fire. It's been literature. It's been cinema. It's been theater. And so even though a lot of this technology I'm talking about is new and exciting, it's really gets back to the core of storytelling and human experience. And it's really just a way to enhance that and empower it with compelling technology. The way that I look at immersive media or just immersive storytelling is based on three aspects that I've kind of thought about. One is the physical sense of spatial design, just a sense of being in a spatial environment. This is what I get very excited by. Having an architectural background, and I'll tell you another activity that I've done that is very spatial. And that is kind of a lot of the basis of my work, is trying to capture locations that have storytelling, but also have very compelling spatial qualities to them. Then I think there's also the mental type of immersion, and this is more left brain kind of narrative, understanding narrative, character motivations, etc. And then lastly, there's emotional. And if you can combine all three of these in an immersive experience, boy, you've got it. And that's what I challenge my students for. At the end of the class, we have a semester-long virtual reality project. And at the end, I say, do you think it had all three, or did you concentrate more on the physical sense of immersion, mental, or emotional? So, but this is what guides my work frequently. It's kind of what I hold it to, or try to. And then just examples of this. I used to be a pretty active hang gliding pilot. So that, again, I just love the spatiality of nature from an aerial point of view. Again, another reason I love immersive media so much. If we look at the mental aspect, you could look at Bandersnatch, a Black Mirror episode, which had branching narrative. That again kind of challenge you to understand things kind of in a very rational way of where a story is going. And then lastly, Alfonso Cuarón's fantastic Roma, and that tremendous scene you may know from that film, which is just an emotional, blockbuster. I mean, just hits you in the gut. So again, if you can contain, levels of this in your work, it's tremendous. This one I'm not going to spend much time on, but this is just showing how we're in this trajectory of going from traditional cinema to stereoscopic, a deep frame, to a large deep frame with IMAX to full dome hemispherical, and then going 180, and then going to 360 VR, whether it's linear, real time, and then ultimately going into venues such as the Illuminati that Donardo talked about. And then lastly, I think in the future, we're going to have much more interactive, interesting interaction based on some kind of future technology arriving. Now, of course, the big news in full dome is Sphere, Sphere and Cosm. I'll talk about Cosm next, but Sphere, of course, is a 16K resolution, largest LED full dome created yet. Fascinating to see where they're taking it, how they're generating enthusiasm for it, which I think it's largely been successful, that I can tell. But the great thing is Full Dome has always been kind of a subculture of true believers, and of which I've been one, who we love the format. And it's just a wonderful delivery of medium of content. But we've always wanted it to go large. Well, now it's going large, and Sphere's kind of starting that off. But and this is, of course, their current show, The Wizard of Oz, which has a bunch of kind of physical, apparently physical aspects of things dropping down from the ceiling and so forth. But anyway, Sphere has a studio here in LA in Burbank, and I have a few of my students working there. I've been in talks with them a little bit. And but I think, again, this is from a very commercial standpoint, so kind of more for mainstream media rather than experimental work, but we will see. COSM is another advancing or kind of explosion of activity now. This is a conjunction of a number of companies that were purchased together. Evans and Sutherland, notably, many of you, I'm sure, in this audience are familiar, have contact with them. And COSM is now an attempt at creating many venues, not just the Sphere, which is singular at this point, but many across the country and potentially the world, with, again, I think it's 12K, but let's just call it 16K, high resolution LED screen also. And of course, this one has opened here in Los Angeles, adjacent to SoFi Stadium. And this is, again, a big commercial venture with a lot of investment and so forth. This is what was called Dome X. This was ENS's kind of development of the LED dome that took place, I believe, over 7 years' time. And these are the LED panels, which, amazingly enough, at close range, look amazingly low resolution. Again, they have perforation between for audio to avoid audio focusing. But they certainly don't have the light bounce focusing that happened in Full Dome because of the high intensity of an LED display. So this has a lot to do with LED advancement that's been tremendous in the last, say, 5 to 10 years, taking advantage of that. Interestingly enough, the engineering of this was not trivial. Each panel, as I understand, is unique because it has to form a hemisphere. And the dimensions are not just simply all monolithic squares, and then the server, background to run this is pretty large. But again, stunning display. First time I went to Salt Lake and saw this, I told them the next time. I said, "Have you found my jaw on the floor? I think I left it here last time." It's just a stunning thing. Now, what their core business is sporting, and it's designed to put you kind of in the stadium as an extension, and you could be in different seats, different points of view. What appears to be a built environment above you is actually part of the screen, so you can have graphics, you could have any kind of mixed media in these experiences. With kind of VIP seating and with a tremendous amount of bars installed. These actually probably more bars than I've seen in any venue in LA, which is kind of funny. But nonetheless, again, these are, I think I could be wrong here, I think there's 3 open so far. I'm sure they have ambition for many more across the country. Okay, so moving on. I'm also been involved with DomeFest West. I'm now on the board, and this is a tremendous thing I'd like you to be aware of if you're not. This is a film festival right now, the only dedicated festival we have in the U.S. for Full Dome. And DomeFest was actually started years ago in New Mexico by David Beining. Got to give him props for that. But this is kind of a reboot of the whole thing. And we're holding it at the Fisk Planetarium in Boulder, which has yet to go LED, but it's still a tremendous venue. So in any case, this is one place for you, because I think this audience is mostly creators, for you to submit your work to. And there's actually several Full Dome festivals worldwide. I would, one place you can go to learn about these is fddb.org. Which is kind of the main site for the Full Dome community worldwide. And then DomeFest, we also put on great talks. Daniel, I think I saw you on the participant list. But in any case, this was one of the many talks that we host here as well, much like IVRPA for what we're doing this morning. So worth taking a look at. My background originally, Greg Downing and I originally got together and took our visual effects expertise and kind of applied it to the natural world. But our first exploration was with gigapixel. And some of you involved with Panoramic may go back to those days. But this was very, very early in trying to integrate it into a visual effects or filmmaking pipeline. So we used an early robotic head. I don't need to go into all this. This is kind of old news now. And what we thought was a big image back then is actually probably kind of tiny now compared to what this audience, what this community, I should say, is doing. But at some point, we figured out, because we were shooting spherical gigapixels, we figured this could go up on a dome. And Greg had some contact with the Gates Planetarium, I think, in Denver. So Dan Neefus, who ran that at the time, welcomed us in and gave us kind of a home to develop. And we also did the same with a small planetarium here in LA. But in any case, we put out a film called Crossing Worlds. It was a short, and it was basically mostly all still panoramas, but I used techniques to dimensionalize them in Maya in 3D, trying to kind of find ways to kind of extend what a panorama could do. So that was our first incarnation of it. This is the Gates Planetarium, showing, I think Greg was showing some other pano images. And then we saw, as VR came up in kind of the early 10s, we saw opportunity for that too, and kind of put our efforts over into that area as well. Things changed for me big time when we put the Vive came out, and the resolution and performance got better with VR. And Greg had captured an Egyptian tomb in Egypt working with Nat Geo. And he brought this back, and we put that in Unity and looked at it in real time, and it just sent chills down my spine. I couldn't believe how what a compelling experience it was. I call it our Watson Bell moment. Greg said, "Get over here and take a look at this," and I just was stunned. So that kind of set the course for where I've been for the last probably 10 years. And this is just one example of three DOF, 3 degrees of freedom versus 6 DOF. And in 6 DOF, you really are immersed in the environment. 3 DOF, it's a linear filmed environment. But, and again, this doesn't really relate to the dome as much. Dome is 3 DOF, but there is some good opportunities for that potentially. Our tool then became photogrammetry, and this is all that I've concentrated on for several years now. And I'm not going to go into this deeply, but our very first photogram project was for the Morrison Planetarium in San Francisco with Ryan Wyatt and company. And this was capturing one of the piers on the Embarcadero. I forgot, I think it was Pier 39 maybe. And but this was kind of an early test, or actually it was used in a film, but it was kind of seeing if the software could create the detail and resolution required for full dome. And we found that it did. And actually, this is pretty early photogrammetry software, so it worked out fairly well. That got me very inspired to kind of bring this into several locations. This is Carlsbad Caverns, but you can see it's actually three-dimensional geometry behind it. And here's a capture a few years ago in India that, again, I put the Apple headset in there because seeing this in the Apple headset with full freedom is just a 6-degree freedom is just a stunning experience. That became a product that I launched quite a while ago now, probably 8 or 9 years ago, and it's been on Meta and Steam, and now it's on Apple. And this has been a kind of a successful project for me over the years to kind of productize some of these. And here it is on the Apple headset. And here I've kind of categorized it into different areas. What these are, it's not necessarily narrative, it's their experiences. So you can, each one of these has about 8 or 10, I think, locations with background information and some interaction. And you're free to explore and walk around, teleport around these scenes. And I just find it to be a stunning way to kind of experience a space. Funny enough, people don't see these as a replacement. People say, I want to go there. And it's funny because some people think, oh, okay, I've been there, I don't need to go. Not at all. It's actually a great way to kind of preview whether you would like to go. someplace. This actually last year I decided to scratch an itch that I've had for years, which is concentrated so much on photogrammetry being faithful to the real world. But I've always admired Jerry Ullsman back from my film days and early photography days, as I'm sure many of you have. And one day I was kind of reconnecting with Jerry's work, and I thought, wait a minute, this could be photogrammetry as well. I could abstract it, I could kind of merge it with different things, kind of do early types of compositing, but do it with photogrammetry and kind of, kind of work with the natural world in a new way. So that became, and this is one of a photogrammetry capture, and then just kind of looking at some concept art on what it could be. And this ended up becoming a film I made last year for the Dome called Stratum. And this is very short, it's about 6 minutes. But the other thing, and this is what I wanted to share with you today mostly, was that from a production level, I wanted this to be a test too. All my film projects, generally, I'm trying to also kind of determine new ways of working. And what I thought on this was, and you all know the lat long format, of course, this is the panoramic community. But I thought if I could do a stereo, top bottom, 16K, 16K, lat long, from that, I could go out to the Apple headset and easily achieve the 12K, 6K per eye. I could easily go to full dome at 8K. And then I could possibly go over to COSM at their 12K, which is a vertical full dome. So the circular images are called Dome Masters. That's the format that's worked in full dome compared to lat long that we do in panoramic. I did some testing with lensing. I figured out I could easily match 4K or 6K higher in IMAX with a 90-degree field of view. And then this last one is an odd installation that a friend of mine has in San Francisco, and it's called the Cinechamber. And this is also, can I go out to a specialty location-based format? And then lastly, just to move on, these films also are, that film and a few others are available now on the Apple headset on a wonderful application called Theater. And what Theater is a 6 degree of freedom. It's a spatial full dome venue that plays back 8K stereo full dome. So this is a great opportunity, I think, for our community to get some remuneration for the work and actually sell your work as a rental or as a buy. And so I'm experimenting with this right now. This just released a few months ago. And to see the quality of it is just a stunning thing on the Apple headset. Perhaps they have interest in going to the Google headset. I haven't asked them yet. Okay, very quickly, because I'm going to race through this as just a few last slides, this is just kind of some very simplistic ideas of how to get started doing any of this. How does the panoramic community work in full dome? So any 360 panos, everyone here in this audience has an enormous reservoir of panoramas. It's all viable. All that can readily be formatted into the dome. But other production techniques is you can use 8mm fisheye time lapse. I'll show you next. You can do standard 360 video camera work. The thing about that, stereoscopic is not critical. Generally, the domes are monoscopic. Funny enough, they don't necessarily need to be stereoscopic. There's been studies that we've had in the past comparing, and it's funny that it really doesn't bring as much to the experience as flat stereo does. And then also 180 cameras. I'm just going to go through this. And then lastly, there's 3D apps that I tend to use a lot. And of course, all, ending up in real time. But very quickly, just so you know, and this is old standard going down to 4K to 2K, but any lat long is basically when you convert it to Dome Master, ends up being half the resolution, or really a quarter resolution. So, or actually half the resolution. So these days, if you shoot a 16K lat long, which is what I did on my film, I can go out to an 8K full dome, Dome Master. And that's just one thing to keep in mind. So if you have a 6K or an 8K video acquisition, you're really getting half of that once you're over in a Dome Master for the full dome. We work in field charts that are very common in film also. This also helps alignment for those of you knowing from the planetarium world. And then also, this is a great little safe area chart that that is very useful to use to understand how the audience perceives an image, and it's based on seating. So the yellow is seats on the back, red would be seats on the front, and kind of where that is. Zenith, funny enough, depending, it needs to be there, but is not where the audience is generally looking. And that's part of why COSM's approach doesn't really emphasize the rear. This is not like VR where you can be in a spinny chair and spin around. It's really kind of forward facing generally. Again, for this audience, I think 8mm fish, really easy way to get started. I've done a ton of this, and there's a great film called Ancient Skies from quite a while ago, which is about all the megaliths in Britain, time-lapse shot for full dome. All kinds of easy work. This is very easy to do if you have a motion control rig like this that I use. It could be super useful too to enhance the work. Moving over to 360 cameras, I think the InstaPro was used probably in what we just looked at before. And also Obsidian is kind of a high-end device. It only shoots stills, but it is a cinema player, but very expensive. But again, there's a whole range of prosumer cameras. One thing in VR that's now become a standard is going 180, which is actually what full dome is, but this is kind of more is a vertical dome as opposed to an overhead or tilted dome. And these cameras, the R5C is relatively affordable. Has some limitations for sure, but still it's not bad. This is what I teach with in our film program at USC. And then stitching, all of us here know about stitching. There are video stitching packages. Mystica is kind of the kingpin. If you know Nuke, Kara is a plugin for Nuke that I've used also. That's really nice. And getting close to the end here, Teleport is another, and I forget the individual's name. He's in London, but he put this out on Meta. And it is a tremendous app. His UI, I think, is very well done. But it's a good example of, I think, for this community, of anybody shooting panoramas or 360 video can produce wonderful content with existing, with your existing library. And take a look at this if you have access to a Quest, Meta Quest headset. And I think you'll find there's a close similarity to IVRPA's mission. That's one reason I include this, but I have a lot of respect for this app. It's very simple 360 video, but it's a beautiful way to kind of experience things. And I looked at this and I kind of went, why am I knocking my head on photogrammetry? This is actually kind of a nice way to show things. Film project is an old film project. We did a Machu Picchu kind of showing Hiram Bingham's photography and so forth for a company called Jaunt a long time ago. And just to close, this is kind of to look at photogrammetry. This is my main method these days, which is doing still capture, turning it into 3D models. Here you can see the mesh on the side. And I've done this for several organizations and clients. This is a project I did a major shoot this year in India, and this is just showing an example of the mesh, the underlying mesh, but then what the imagery that is textured onto it appears to be. So I'm deep in production right now on an amazing array of locations. So, now, lastly, the future. The future is based on a thing now called radiance fields. Now, this started off, and I'm not going to lecture too long on this, but this is a way to capture the problem with, let me actually back up a slide if I can. The problem with this image is there's no specularity. It's baked light. So as you walk around this scene in VR headset, you will not notice any shift in lighting specular nature. The lighting is kind of dead. Most of the time, the way that I design it, you teleport, you don't notice that. But for true reality capture, especially with fine detail, you would need that issue of specularity. So this is a new form that started out as a thing called NERFs. It's now been replaced with, hold on, let me see if I can get past that. with a thing called Gaussian splats. And again, this could easily be a whole lecture. As a matter of fact, yeah, I think Lauren spoke at IVRPA on this. I watched that. Great job on that, Lauren. And talking about his explorations with splats. And to be honest, I'm just now kind of going down that road myself. I'm not going to go into all this, but these are pros and cons of these techniques. Lastly, to close, we're all photographers here. We're all filmmakers. We're all affected by the real world. That's the common bond. Technology is here to kind of help us share that passion and the stories that arise from all that. And that's what ultimately fascinates me is content comes first, tech comes second. And lastly, I do have this is from a few years ago, but I do have a class I did for Autodesk University a few years ago. And there is a slide stack and a presentation. This is more about panoramic techniques that I'm free to give you a link to. Actually, you can, excuse me, just search on Autodesk University and my name and you'll find this. You could just put Hanson, Hanson, and you could download this. And this is to the panoramic community, you're going to know a lot of these techniques, but it just kind of reviews a lot of that. These are some of the slides from it. And then if you ever want to reach out, that's my email and my current company. So that is my prezzo.
Hey, Eric, we have a question here from Ross Lamberth. Are any of your full 360 panos available for loan, license, purchase for projection into bespoke environments? I've been working in a music venue that has four-wall projection, and I'd love to test some of your captures in that relatively low pixel environment.
Well, you'll find I'm pretty easy. I'm basically, I would love to get the work out in as many venues as I can. So yeah, certainly. No, I do licensing quite a bit, and but yeah, I'm happy to get the work out there. So yeah, just reach out to me.
Okay, so definitely open up for questions right now. If you want to ask in person, just click the raise hand button that you'll find at the bottom of the screen, your Zoom screen, and then you can ask in person. Otherwise, put the questions into the chat and we shall progress. There are a couple things that I was curious about having to do with 3D. And Eric, you were saying that there have been tests whether viewing a dome in 3D versus 2D doesn't make much of a difference. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me. Sorry, I've got a little cough here. There was a test done, and I'm trying to remember who was involved in it, but actually over in Britain, there's a great dome, a great dome venue for science, and I'm forgetting the name of it at the moment. Sorry. But anyway, they do stereoscopic projection. It is installed in some venues. Cosm actually has a great solution for it too, but it demands active glasses. But that is by far the most compelling thing I've seen in the dome. But again, so for that, for a what should I say, forward-facing dome, for a vertical dome, that makes good sense because it's kind of like cinema where you can kind of feel that the depth very easily. An overhead dome, funny enough, from these studies showed that it brought more to the table, but probably not worth the investment. You know, whether it's polarized or anaglyph or what have you, however your deployment is. It's funny about full dome in that your brain kind of computes the parallax, and there's no real parallax in 3 degrees of freedom, but it kind of feels very spatial. There's something about that level of full immersion that you receive. Funny enough, in VR, you can clearly see the difference, which is kind of against logic, but full dome for some reason, maybe it's the scale of the screen. I'm not sure. The other thing, one thing I'd like to say about full dome that is commonly missed, not with the Pano community, not with IVRPA, but giant screen oftentimes misses this, is that the dome screen is a scrim to create space on. And this is what I teach my students. It's not just a circular, a spherical screen that you project, ad hoc onto. you actually want to understand projection and perspective properly so that the screen disappears and you're just, and DiNardo knows this extremely well from the Illuminati, is that that at that point the screen is just a scrim that kind of brings you into the space. So that's why I use 3D so much in Maya, is that I can render out stereoscopically or spherically very easily. So that's my technique, is take photogrammetry and then take that to then create film from Maya, or go over to Unity and deploy real time in a headset. So we're at 6 degrees of freedom. But yeah, don't always remember that about the dome, is that you'll see examples of people that don't understand that, and they'll have graphics or titles, or even the whole piece may not be properly spatial anyway.
I don't know if I can jump in on the stereo discussion.
Yeah.
But there are tons of studies that show that motion parallax is the stronger cue for depth than the separation of your eyes. So, if what we've done in domes is actually track the person. So if you build your 3D environment, you take your photogrammet, how do I say that word? Use your photogrammetry to make a 3D environment, and then if you track the person, the environment will move the proper way. And that depth cue is super strong. It's stronger than stereo. And if you think about it, people have lost an eye and they can still pick up a coffee cup, right? Because their head is moving and everything becomes 3D. We did at ASTC, Association of Science and Technology Centers in Toronto, we did a pirate themed cyclorama where we were flying onto the surface of Mars, and we gave everybody an eye patch. And giving them an eye patch made the entire projection 3D, because they didn't have the second eye telling them that that's not stereo. And so the camera was perfect, the motion parallax was perfect, and you could stop and land on the surface of Mars and it still held its depth for a reasonably long time. So it's all I'm doing is reinforcing what you were saying, Eric.
Fascinating. By covering up one eye, it gives more of a sense of 3D.
Absolutely. The camera is capturing the real world, right?
Yeah.
And so once you have that, all the disconnect is broken when you cover that one eye up.
Mm. Let's see.
I see a question. Actually, I'll respond to it. I don't know if it's for me or the panel, but looking at AI generation like Marble, yeah, definitely it's a major tangent that's beginning. This is a AI generative packet or application that will build basically panoramic scenes. And as a matter of fact, the other one to look at is Google's, and oh my God, I'm going to forget the name of it now, but they have a new one that is pretty unbelievable, where and this is more again for the fictional world. I have friends of mine deeply involved in AI. I'm kind of standing apart from it at the moment. I don't know if it's my age or my get off my lawn age that I'm in, but I firmly believe in. I'm not sold on it. Let's put it this way, and that's a whole debate. But at the same time, people are saying, hey, photogrammetry could actually. There's new tools. Actually, Meta just this week put out their tool, and again, I'm forgetting that name also. But the of just taking a still image and creating 3D modeling from it with a very minimum amount, with using AI to kind of fill what's not seen, basically, kind of using generative probably as a reference. But yeah, this will be a very fascinating thing if you want to. Well, it could be for real world too, but I think for fictional worlds it'll be quite extraordinary. Basically, as you step through these environments, it extends the scene, so it's all real time and interactive, as I understand. And but no, I'm not been I'm not going down that road at the moment. So a lot of this, I think the problem that I have with technology now is it's almost moving too quick, where I think as a professional, we want to rely on kind of reliable tools or tools that are kind of staying in place. One reason I've used Maya for so long, it's a 25-year-old, maybe 30-year program. It just never changes, and there's a beauty to that. It's like my brother's a big fine woodworker, and he talks about his tools. He goes, "Yep, 20 years later, it still cuts wood," you know, and can't say the same about computers or tech. So yeah, but that's this stuff is moving so quick. But yeah, it's you know, something I'm keeping my eye on, but not participating in at the moment.
Put us all out of business. No, I'm in the camp that it'll just add more tools. I'm responding to a comment from Howard.
There's also a question here from John Wright. I don't know if that who that's addressed to, but if you guys want to check it out, or I could read it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so it says, I'm a learner with working with Insta360 Pro to make virtual tours. I've stopped stitching in stereos. I couldn't find an easy way to delete the tripod. Is it easy in monoscopic? Any tips?
Well, I'll just say what I know about that is many of you know, use panoramic heads. Nodal Ninja, you know, is fantastic for offering a off nadir shot. So from that, you can begin to, you know, get coverage of surfaces that were occluded by the tripod. Ultimately, the way you would want to do that would be to some type of 3D reconstruction, especially if the camera's in motion, obviously. But yeah, I use a really great plugin written by a friend of mine over in Norway in Photoshop for stills anyway, that very quickly kind of does a reprojection flat, so you can paint it out very easily. But yeah, they're probably, I'm sure Mystica, if you look at Mystica a little more closely, it probably does have specialized tool for that. I don't know. I'm not a big user of that.
Ross wanted to know again where you teach.
I'm at USC School of Cinematic Arts. And in the animation digital arts division, I'm kind of the digital arts part of that, me and one other guy.
Okay. More questions, please.
Well, I just sent one out, but I'll ask it this way. Eric, do you ever, when recreating those 3D environments, do you ever just keep it in a point cloud and navigate through point clouds, or does it always get converted to a mesh?
Well, I'm a big user of reality capture. Now Reality Scan, it's free through Epic when they bought it. We were part of the origin story of that app a long time ago. But nonetheless, that to me is, and again, my opinion is that it's the only package that'll equate your source photography with the quality at the end. So in other words, your quality is not degraded from the software if you do it right. But in any case, but point cloud is the first step in a photogrammetric process. And as a matter of fact, that's what I'm been just now experimenting with, is exporting that over to PostShot for splats, which is kind of a known, I think that's an emerging pipeline now. But yeah, no, I don't do anything. I have not done much with point clouds in the past. I do use LiDAR on occasion for built environment captures, because photogrammetry will fail on a lot of built environment. But depending. But anyway, yeah, no, but yeah, I think with splats now, point clouds are going to play a really central role in everything.
Bernardo and Roger, if you want to turn on your cameras too, you're all part of this. And I am curious. Well, all right, let's get to this other question first. Do any of you use a previs work before content creation for domes? There's a powerful tools for stage and live shows, but how does it work, or does it work with this workflow? Okay, I'm gathering nobody uses the previs software.
Well, I think, I mean, I'm waiting to see what the others say here, but no, I mean, my previs is always done in Maya. It's just always three-dimensional. But the problem with any type of previs or storyboarding is there's not really any software that addresses immersive media or full dome that I know of. Like Storyboard Pro, that's a very cell-driven, 2D cell-driven app. And that's, great for most of the industry, but for our industry, not as much. There actually is a PDF that I give my students. But there's actually two that I know of. I think there's probably more, but they're just PDFs of kind of showing hemispherically thinking spatially in your previs. That's a difference. You're not in a frame anymore. You're in a frameless environment. So, and there's another great script that I start my students with. It's a description of, it's kind of like a standard film script, but it's color coded. And then it has an axis jack, like a 3-axis indicator of different colors. But it's actually, I'm sorry, it's actually six directions. So the text is color coded to the axis. So in other words, the script might say, an aircraft approaches overhead, and then that's in yellow. Well, the yellow jack would be pointing upward. So you can read the script, but understand it spatially. It's actually kind of neat. So that's a very simple way of doing this. Again, I think for shooting the natural world, though, like Roger, I think you're exploring, you're finding locations and capturing them. So I don't know what previs you might go through in your work. Do you want to talk about that? I mean, in other words, that's kind of more cinema verite, right? You're shooting out in the world. Or is your work scripted? I guess is what I'm asking.
Turn on your microphone, Roger.
My work, what? Sorry, my workflow?
Well, is it scripted? Like, are you shooting with the Instapro? Are you your locations you're probably going to shoot? But I mean, do you wait? Like some directors wait till they're on set to discover shots, right? Or are you prevising that ahead of time with your knowledge of a location?
No, well, this is well, I have to research before, depends, because if it's a purely exploration, like the case, you just go to find something. So basically, I'm going with everything I have in my bag to whatever I need, I will use it. But normally, when, for example, with protected areas or so on, I really see things before shoot. And yes, I care a lot about the light, because what I see is that when the sun is too in the middle, the thing doesn't work well. So yes, for sure, I have to find out well in which moment the sun is gonna be like 40 degrees maximum. And yes, it's not always an adventure to get to those places. So yes, the research always comes first, and it will be like also discover this technique, because as I said before, I started like as a normal director, like a 2D director things. But yes, you have to manage to put people in place in those places. So for example, in the beginning, I used to fly so like far from the trees or very high, because it's normal for you do it in the normal shoot thing to do in 2D shootings. But yes, now I know that it's better to fly close to the trees, or try to do more like yes, like yes, more close to the places. Many people is, well, what I find out in the way, many people is afraid of the close-ups, but not. I believe that to show details, to show like small things also is good. Many people have point those things in my films, like, well, before just was just like landscapes, but we enjoy also to feel like we are the ant well, the ant. So yes, I believe that is a lot of research in it. There is a lot. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question. I hope yes.
No, that's good. Hey, one thing I want to add, by the way, it just occurred to me, going back to the, I know this is technical, but going back to the tripod thing, what we used to do back in the jaunt days was we'd take out the tripod monoscopically, which is what somebody's suggesting, but we would then do a gradient, a radial gradient, so that the image goes mono at the poles, which you kind of want to do anyway. Because the poles are technically impossible in stereo. There's like a fundamental technical barrier to that. So what you can do, and that's one reason why I like 3D rendering, because it will do poles, perfectly. But for real world cameras, stitch cameras, that's a big issue. That's a problem. So what we would do for that is just gradiate into a monoscopic frame at the top and bottom. And that way you can remove the tripod easier. Sorry about that. I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, we did that a long time ago on a lot of shows.
Now that we are speaking about topics, I don't know if you guys, you probably have more experience than me in that. I'm totally sure. Yes. What do you think about the well, the 3D projections in Dome? I didn't see that here in Colombia. I didn't see that in anywhere. Do you believe that that can be possible? Like in the cinema, you normally use just those 3D goggles. So in here can happen the same thing?
So Eric was talking about this, but in a dome, especially if you think about a planetarium, specifically a planetarium dome, three-dimensional, your eyes are separated this way. So you kind of have to make an artificial stereo. You maintain this separation around the azimuth, right? But if you look up, it's going to break. And so he was saying that stereo is a gradation to 0 at the zenith of the dome. So at the top of the dome, there's no stereo at all. And you can do that way. There was a company called McCoy, Prairie Logic. Everybody remember Don Pierce, but they had that, right? They had this stereo algorithm for domes. It allowed you to change the stereo, right? But you kind of have to, if you want it to work, you have to do that. If you don't do that, if you do like a normal 3D from NVIDIA, and you just say make it 3D, it's going to be backwards behind you, right? It'll be left right here, but it'll be left right there too. And so when you turn around, the stereo's the wrong way. So you have to have an artificial stereo that is good enough. So typically people don't do it. It's hard to make it look good. If you have like some of the screens I was showing, where it's more of a vertical screen aiming at you, then you can have the left-right stereo, works fine, right? But in a planetarium specifically, it's very difficult to make that work.
I think we're kind of getting close to the here. And there was one series of questions, or just a general question, is that the interaction with these domes. The question was about using a treadmill, but can you widen it out to how does a person interact with a dome image, right? Is it hand gestures because you're not physically touching it? Can you just quickly cover that general?
Sure. When you talk about treadmill, we have a medical client that does balance training for people who've had head injuries, and they literally, I don't know if I'm far enough away, but they stand up and then they are on a platform that allows them to tilt and lean, and that's how they fly through the 3D environment, and it helps them regain their balance. So they're all strapped on with safety harnesses, but the same company does it with treadmills as well. But that kind of stuff in terms of an environment, like how do I say it? In terms of a public environment, that's a specific tool. A public environment, it's less effective. It's kind of a novelty item, and you're better off doing interaction. We actually like to have mechanical haptic tools that allow you to press buttons and move things because it's fun. You can still navigate through things. Typically, a museum is going to want touch screens because they don't break, and if they do break, they're easy to replace. So, like, if you get creative, the more creative you get, the less likely a museum is going to want to do it. So you have to really balance all of that stuff out. But in terms of navigation, gesture is actually really powerful. There's Media Pipe is it's a free Google I don't know what you call it, a library API that allows you to do tracking with video cameras. It works really well. It's pretty robust. That's what we ended up using out of that one gesture I was showing. There's the Leap Motion is a good one, but Media Pipe I found to be even better. Leap Motion is very good for near field hand gestures. Media Pipe tracks your whole body, and so now all of a sudden you've got your body doing things. But again, people don't want to do this for more than a minute, right? It's just not natural. So I don't know if I answered the question, but you end up falling back to mechanical interfaces. To talk about that pirate ship, we literally built a pirate ship where the ship's wheel did lifting and turning, and that's how, and you had a lever that gave you speed, and all we did was take the joystick commands and convert them to something much more difficult. People like to have difficult interaction. It's more engaging.
No, that's a good answer. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, we're at an hour and 45 minutes. Perhaps we should wrap this up.
Oh, people were asking for emails, and it looks like there's you could have some continuing discussions here. If you're okay with it, drop emails in the chat.
Sure.
There could be some follow-up. And excellent presentations, by the way. I found this very fascinating. I appreciate the emphasis that you all had on the storytelling aspect of it. And we'll have to have a follow-up where you talk about how you're making money on this. I was very intrigued by the idea of capturing or taking things that we've created and having them as these little mini experiences. It's kind of this TikTok immersive thing, and I'm intrigued by that. But again, thank you.
What is this thing you call money, by the way?
Yeah, well, I've heard about it. I don't have any.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
excellent job by all of you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Great. It was really fun.
Yeah, thank you very much. This has been fascinating.